I'm joined this morning, though, by Dan McGinn. His firm, TGM Strategies, has seen some major companies through crises. So, Dan, really, BP is the one that came out with ads here. Toyota came out and addressed it. Goldman Sachs largely hasn't really engaged with the press much. Let's start with BP. The public knew them as BP Beyond Petroleum.
Right.
Now they only know them as the Gulf of Mexico disaster. How would you advise them to get out of this?
BP, I have said from the beginning, is writing new rules, new standards for crisis response. This is unprecedented. The problem for them is you can't really get to the substance of the image and the PR as long as the leak continues.
Right.
So they've got to show they're doing everything on that. I am of a view that I don't think their ad campaign's the right idea. I think it's 20th century tactics for a 21st century challenge.
Their current ad campaign,
Yes.
where they have the head of the claims process out there,
Right.
Darrell Willis, they have Tony Hayward out there saying the slogan is, "We will make this right."
Right.
What's wrong with that?
Well, I believe the public has been ahead of both BP and the White House in this crisis from the beginning. The public knew this was also about your heart and passion, not just about the technical response. They were looking for emotional engagement. They were looking for BP to understand it wasn't about them. The problem with an ad campaign is it looks just too much like we're trying to manipulate attitudes. I would say to them, don't spend any money on ads. Say we're going to do it all free and tell people that we're going to put that money into something else. But we're not going to just run print ads. That I don't think really persuade people.
Now, they still employ people in the Gulf. I mean, they are still wanted in many ways in terms of their presence because of the economic value they deliver. Something like 47% of Americans actually hold their stock. So, of those who hold it, 47% are Americans. So, tell me, I mean, how do you rebound from this? Your suggestion as to what they can do in the Gulf is to create, you say, scholarships?
Here's the argument I'd make for BP. As much as we are offended and grieving about this crisis, the world's environmental problems and the world's energy problems are not going to be better if BP disappears.
Right.
We're going to need BP here. What they should be thinking about is, first of all, you got to solve the problem. People want substance. But second, there's going to be a legacy. The legacy should be more than damage. I would encourage BP to create the largest scholarship program in the history of this country to educate these kids in the Gulf region. That will leave a positive legacy. Doesn't make up for it. I'm not kidding about that.
No.
But it broadens out the discussion, the perception of BP.
Now, I've had people who work at Goldman Sachs say to me, sort of half guiltily, that the best thing for Goldman Sachs has been on the PR front this disaster because it got Goldman Sachs out of the crosshairs of the press. Did that solve Goldman's PR problem?
It doesn't begin to solve the problem. But it's interesting, of the three you mentioned, Toyota, BP, and Goldman. Goldman's the least consumer sensitive. What they really want is just to be out of the news. Here's the problem for Goldman. For most Americans, we know what they take out of the economy. We don't know what they put into the economy. That's the problem with them. They look just about greed and just about self-aggrandizement. They don't look like they're adding to jobs, growing our economy.
But that gets to almost a pre-crisis thing. If you don't get out there and communicate your message within the press or, to the public more broadly, then you're only going to be answering questions about the crisis, not about what you actually do.
That's exactly right. When you've got a business like that only a few insiders really understand in the first place, and you have a crisis, it's too late to make friends. It's too late to try to explain that we're the white hat here. I would ask Goldman Sachs, what have they learned from this? What are they willing to change? And what are they willing to do inside the industry as a whole to communicate their contributions in a better way?
Now, on both fronts, I guess the devil's advocate position would be they both face ongoing litigation. They can't necessarily communicate.
Oh, I think you can. You can communicate your values. You can communicate a sense of responsibility. People understand that there are limits because of business issues and liabilities and lawyers, but it doesn't mean that space is left empty for you. There are a lot of things that you can do and say. CEO BP should have said, everything that happened here was on my watch. I take full and complete responsibility. The lawyers will work out liability, but I'm the captain of this ship.